This WAFB special is sponsored by Broussard, Bush and Hurst, the General Health Foundation, and Rabenhorst Funeral Home.
Tomorrow afternoon, here at St. Joseph Cathedral, Bishop Alfred C. Hughes will be installed the 4th Bishop of the Baton Rouge Catholic Diocese. He succeeds Bishop Stanley Joseph Ott, a man who earned the love and respect of Catholics and non-Catholics alike, a man buried here less than a year ago. Bishop Ott asked Baton Rouge to view his death as one of God's seasons and to embrace his death as a beginning, a new season for Baton Rouge.
So there's a time, as the book of Ecclesiastes, a time to be born, a time to die, a time to laugh, a time to mourn. So there's a time to fold the tent and say, Lord, now everything is in your hands.
I sense this is going to be a new season for me. Of course, the message of Ecclesiastes is that God provides these special seasons, and I look upon what's happening as both a gift and a mission from God.
Good evening, I'm George Sells.
And I'm Julie O'Neill. Tonight, on this eve of an historic event for the Catholic Diocese of Baton Rouge, we give you an introduction to the man who will be taking over, a man who no doubt will influence not only religion, but politics and education.
We'll go to Boston, to the suburb of West Roxbury, Massachusetts, where Bishop Hughes grew up.
We'll talk to friends and family, and we'll take a look at how the bishop handled a wave of scandal within the Archdiocese. Several priests brought up on sexual molestation charges, baptisms invalidated.
Finally, what does Baton Rouge think of the new shepherd? We talked to some of you to get your thoughts.
I love you. Please take care of the Lord. You take care of Father McCarthy and Father Beautiful. You know how often.
I have never had anyone say a bad word about him.
You know, the fall is so beautiful around here.
This is indeed a poignant moment in my own life.
This evening, a little background.
Imagine at the age of 60 being uprooted and moved to some place that was really completely foreign to you.
Boston has always been home to Bishop Hughes. We traveled there a few weeks ago to give you an idea who he is and where he's coming from. It's a city that would be hardest to leave this time of year. In fact, walk through the streets of Boston, the folks are quick to boast about their crisp New England climate.
I like the change of seasons. I like the winter, you know, the fall. The fall is so beautiful around here.
And if changes of season are inspiring, so are the sounds of a bagpipe. It's what the Cajun accordion is to South Louisiana, and in their pubs, an Irish tenor plays. It's a city steeped in tradition, rich in history, and you know you're there as soon as someone speaks to you. The city has a sense of humor about its distinctive Bostonian accent.
Yeah, they're pretty friendly. Yeah, everybody gets along. Everybody says hi, especially up in the North End. Everybody knows your name. You go by that Cheers bar, everybody knows your name.
On the west side of Boston, in a suburb called West Roxbury, Alfred Clifton Hughes spent his childhood. His father, Alfred Hughes Sr., was a businessman. His mother, Ellen Hennessy Hughes, a teacher. Both are deceased. Dorothy was their first child, then came Marie. Bishop Hughes was their first son, and Kenneth was the baby.
This is where we grew up.
Now, Father Kenneth Hughes, a Jesuit priest, the bishop's brother, took us back to the old neighborhood. This was the two-family home they shared on Clement Street. The Hughes family was the first Catholic family on the then Yankee white Protestant bloc. The children were told they were representatives of the Catholic faith, to be good examples. That apparently struck a chord with Bishop Hughes. Did he get into trouble?
Never.
Never got into trouble?
No. In fact, I can remember And this is one of the stories that we tell as a little boy. I would chase him and hit him, and then I would yell, ouch.
Father Hughes remembers the long walks the boys would take with Dad every weekend by the old firehouse, still a fire station after all these years.
Dad would, you know, stop, and he'd probably talk to the firemen, and I remember once, you know, we got pushed up the pole so we could come down as little kids.
Bishop Hughes tells us his father is the man who most impacted his life. He recalls waking early one morning to cram for a test and finding his father in the living room, kneeling in prayer.
That was the first time that I knew this, but my mother told me that he did that every morning before anybody else got up. And that really hit me.
The bishop first knew in high school he wanted to be a priest. He got a philosophy degree at St. John's Seminary. He then studied theology in Rome and was ordained a priest in 1957. Imagine blessing your parents for the first time. And it was in 1981 the priest was ordained an auxiliary bishop of Boston. The bishop eventually returned to St. John's Seminary, where he spent most of his religious life. He has played a key role in the spiritual formation of these seminarians, as teacher, as rector, and as author of a book and several articles on preparing for church ministry. The seminary grounds are also headquarters for the Archdiocese. Bishop Hughes now abandons this office where he's worked as associate bishop the last few years. He also abandons his right arm in the operation, administrative assistant Judy Devitt. Intellectually, he can handle anything, she says, but his best quality is his compassion.
More people have said to me that when they're meeting Bishop Hughes, either professionally, personally, off the cuff, whatever, they know that he has given them a sense that he has been totally there for them, totally listening to them, non-judgmentally, which is something we do not get very often in our modern society.
He and I share a very similar situation in that we can wash our hair and our face at the same time.
The Chancellor of the Archdiocese has also worked very closely with Bishop Hughes.
He's a pastor at heart, really. And I think that people are going to miss him here in Chancery for that. He was one that was always there, and he will be there, too. He's a great, great person.
Father Cornelius McCrae is the man Bishop Hughes calls best friend. At least he's the man who can bring out the bishop's competitive spirit.
One day we were having a fierce back and forth on the ball, and no one would quit, and the ball kept going and going, and we were getting more and more tired, and neither of us would miss a shot, and finally I think I was the one who missed. And he turned to me in mock seriousness and said, "I hate a quitter."
Everyone loves you here. Every person we have spoken to has given us this long list of saintly qualities.
Did you talk with the right people?
A cathedral mass was recently packed with the people who've come to love and respect Bishop Hughes through the years. This was the bishop's send-off after it was announced he would be leaving for the Deep South. Kind of overwhelming.
I never thought there would be so many who would come to thank God that I was really going.
Bishop Hughes admits it's important to keep a sense of humor about himself. At the same time, he's devoutly spiritual. In preparing this report, the bishop asked the focus be not on him, but on his boss.
Helping people to recognize that Jesus is Lord, Savior, helping them to be able to respond to him, is nothing more important for me. There's nothing that excites me more.
Stay with us this evening as our special introduction to Bishop Hughes continues.
It's been a rough year for the Archdiocese of Boston. Several priests have been charged with sexual abuse, and that's only the beginning. When we come back, how Bishop Hughes has handled the scandal in the church.
That was always a big thrill to get up on the fire truck and to slide down the pole from the upstairs area, and so that was my first desire, to be a fireman.
You're still putting out fires, though.
As well, especially in the administrative role.
Good evening and welcome back as our special introduction to Baton Rouge's new bishop continues.
You may not be aware of this, but the Boston Archdiocese is about 8 times the size as the Baton Rouge Diocese. And in Boston, there is a political climate, which we don't see that much here in the South.
Women march in protest, fighting for the right to be priests. The Catholic Church's stance on abortion has been met with fierce opposition, and in the past year, there have been an unprecedented number of priest sexual molestation cases.
As Vicar General and Chairman of the Bishop's Doctrinal Committee, Bishop Hughes has played a key role in shaping the way these issues are handled, especially when it comes to the news media. The Archdiocese of Boston is one of 6 cardinal seats in the United States. It's one of the oldest and largest Catholic communities in the country. And because of its size, the incidence of controversy and scandal is much greater. As Vicar of Administration, Bishop Hughes has been the advisor and right-hand man to Boston's Bernard Cardinal Law. Right-hand man, as he puts it, putting out the fires, like this one.
Father John Hanlon was accused of raping an altar boy more than 10 years ago.
Like this one.
Tonight, guilty pleas from former priest James Porter. He took the stand today and admitted molesting dozens of children.
In total, there have been about half a dozen cases of alleged priest sexual misconduct in the past year. A nightmare for the Archdiocese and a difficult burden for Bishop Hughes.
I think it's incredibly important that we're able to respond pastorally to the victims.
As Cardinal Law puts it, the Archdiocese has been in the eye of a hurricane. In the past month, he's had to invalidate a number of baptisms because a priest changed the wording to be less offensive to women.
Bishop Hughes would have been very much involved in this issue. And, you know, we...
How has he handled it?
Well, he handles all these issues well. In an issue of this kind, he would meet with people, he would try to get the facts, he would try to explain what the situation is. We would always look for ways in which to deal with the situation without it becoming a cause célèbre. As a matter of fact, in this instance, there was no desire on our part that this should be in the press.
Can I nudge us back to the text?
As chairman of the Doctrinal Committee for the nation's bishops, Hughes has played an instrumental role in answering all of the news media's questions. This group of bishops meets several times a year to spell out the Church's position on any question that might come up, especially where medical advances are concerned.
There needs to be an expression of that kind of concern. Otherwise, we're back in the old business, and you can imagine the responses about those male celibates running other people's bodies and lives again, popping up all over the place.
And he's worked very closely with Dorothy Jodis in making the Archdiocesan schools more efficient, which meant shutting down some of those schools.
He played a major role in handling that steering committee, yes, and bringing it to a good conclusion.
And everyone was happy with it? Most people?
Of course not. Those whose schools were being closed felt like they were losing a family member. We had to make some tough decisions, and they were made.
Bishop Hughes has no qualms about saying he looks forward to bidding goodbye to the high-pressure, high-strung part of Boston. In the Baton Rouge Diocese, he can take on more of a people, shepherd role.
And I would say, and this is particularly important for Baton Rouge, because Baton Rouge has a history of very effective lay involvement in the life of the church. And I would say that he's beautifully equipped for that.
So you see what Bishop Hughes has meant to Boston. What will be expected of him here in the new season?
We take it from Boston back home to Baton Rouge when we come back, as our special introduction to Bishop Hughes continues.
Our special report continues this evening with a look at the new season for Baton Rouge.
We travel now to a small Cajun town just south of Donaldsonville called Belle Rose.
WAFB's Dan Cambry visited at St. Jules Parish, where the members were at an early weekday mass. Dan says while the folks seem receptive to the new bishop, they are also hopeful that he will measure up to the man he replaces.
Even the rain does not stop the faithful from bowing their heads in prayer at St. Jules in tiny bell rows.
Together let us give thanks to the Lord our God. It is right to give thanks and praise.
Dozens come to pray every day, rain or shine. Many are praying now for a new bishop they admit they know very little about. But it's a new bishop, they say, they are counting on.
Do this in memory of me.
Well, the first thing we'd like to see is somebody like Bishop Ott. Bishop Ott, to most of us, was a saint.
Father, all called and ever living God, you do well always and everywhere to give you thanks.
If you could put your finger on one thing that you would like to see from your new bishop, what would it be?
To challenge the people to become holy.
Denise, the body of Christ.
You think he can do that?
Betty, the body of
Christ. Yeah, I think he will do it.
Sister,
bishops that's going to kind of follow Bishop Ott's footsteps and meet the people, greet the people, and be a very friendly, get people together.
I know he's going to do it, with the grace of God.
You think he'll be okay?
Oh, yeah. We're going to pray for him until he's okay.
Sing with us, ye seraphim.
We've seen now about the controversy in Boston faced by Bishop Hughes. There is not controversy necessarily here in South Louisiana, but there are a lot of questions many of us would like to ask Bishop Hughes that maybe we wouldn't ask face to face. But we decided to ask with Monsignor Gerald Lafabvre of St. Stephen's Church from Whitehall. A technical question. Here it is Wednesday evening, and I guess technically he's already bishop, correct?
Correct.
Why is that?
He shows his credentials to the consultors of the diocese, and that makes him bishop.
Let me ask you this. You've got a man who has lived all his life in Massachusetts. He lives a certain sort of life. He's used to the north. Here he comes to Louisiana. Why would they bring a man here all the way from Massachusetts?
Well, I would suspect there are two reasons. I think they're looking for somebody who is similar to Bishop Ott. They didn't want too much of a change there. And I think also he probably got a little push from his archbishop, who is a native of our next door state, Mississippi, Archbishop Cardinal Law.
Cardinal Law of Boston.
Yes, he was born in Mexico, but grew up in Mississippi and went to the seminary at St. Benedict, Louisiana, out near Covington. So he is familiar with this area. He served as a priest in the diocese in Mississippi.
Let me ask you this. What are some of the things he's going to have to get used to in South Louisiana besides our hot sauce?
Well, I think he'll have to get used to living at a little slower pace. And he's going to find a much more relaxed, much more friendly, much more at home type of office than he would in Boston. It won't be so terribly cold and bureaucratic.
Thank you, Monsignor Lafabvre. We'll be back in just a moment with more of A New Season.
This WAFB special is sponsored by Broussard, Bush & Hurst, the General Health Foundation, and Rabenhorst Funeral Home.
Welcome back to A New Season. In less than 24 hours, the man we've been introducing you to, Alfred Clifton Hughes, will be formally installed as the 4th Bishop of Baton Rouge, a man who will guide the diocese into the 21st century. WAFB will carry the installation ceremony live beginning at 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. Donna Britt will join me and Father Gerald Lafabvre to give you step-by-step commentary and insight as Baton Rouge Catholics enter a new season.
We hope you enjoyed our program and now have a better understanding what kind of man Bishop Hughes is and where he will lead the Baton Rouge Catholic Diocese as a new season begins. Thank you for joining us.
Good night.
Song from Donegal called The Boys from Kitty Bags. They're wild and rocky hills on the coast of Donegal, where the fisherman Hardy played the queen. And the big Atlantic spell is the thing they all know well, as the tides may come from the sea. With a pleasant crawling sea and a heaven running free, the beast all gently through the foam.